Page 452, Chapter 30, Defamation of Immanuel, Prophetic Declaration, the Staking. And the governor's soldiers agreed with the high priest and the high council, and with the Sadducees and Pharisees, and with the scribes, and so they dragged Immanuel with them into the judgment hall, or courthouse/torture house, and brought the entire crowd in with him. And they pulled him out of his clothing, and put a purple mantle on him. They also wove a crown of thorns, placed it on his head, put a reed into his right hand, and, bending their knees before him, said, quote, "We greet you, O great King of wisdom of the Jews." And they spat on him, took the reed from his hand, and beat him on the head with it, and blood ran down his face. When he was wretched and bleeding, Caiaphas, the high priest, asked, saying, quote, "How are you doing now, as our great King of wisdom?" But Immanuel was quiet, and said not one word. Then they hit him again on the head, and so he moaned in pain. Therefore Caiaphas, the high priest, demanded in evil hatred that Immanuel report his teaching before him, which is directed towards punishment for breaking or acting contrary to the laws, when insurrection or another misdeed or offense is given. And Caiaphas, the high priest, asked Immanuel, in evil cunning, once more, whether he was a prophet or otherwise one who made confused speeches and brought false teachings. Then Immanuel began to speak, quote, "Indeed, it is the truth that I am the King of wisdom of the God-believers, as it is written by the old, true prophets. Thus, I am also the true prophet of the human species on earth. But in all truth, I am not the prophet of you confused God-believers, you who are referred to as sons of Zion, you who restrict the woman, and also your daughters from performing in your cult, or reject the woman and daughters with regard to offices in the cult. Because you have made the cult only for the man, and in this wise you will also pass it on, so it will also be like this in the new cults, or Christianity/Islam, which many a one, or various ones, will make from my and the new true prophet Mohammed's teaching. And therefore you exclude the woman and your daughters from the cult. You hit or beat and torment or abuse them in malice in your homes or at home, and dishonor and humiliate them openly before the people, and so will you also now do to me. And just as you do such to the woman, the man does this unto the ends of the world, or all around the world, throughout the entire world, because you have taught him this, and so it will remain like this into the distant time or future. And it is you yourselves who break the laws and create terribleness among the human beings, because you have life and death at your disposal with the man. Therefore you go along and command that this or that man be judged by the death because he broke a law determined by you. But you also do such to the woman, so you let her be stoned to death if she breaks a certain law determined by you. And just as you do such to the man and to the woman, because you delight therein, and want to prove your dominance thereby, so will your wrongdoings also be passed on to the new cults, or Christianity and Islam, which will be blasphemingly or slanderously made in deception or lies, in their whole extent from my teaching. What you do to the man and to the woman in punishment by the death, hence you cruelly bring to death or exercise the death penalty, and you stone your victims, and let ones be killed some otherwise. In such a wise will everything be passed on in the new cults, or Christianity/Islam, until far into the new time, or new time starting from 1844. Truly, just as your cult is written with much blood of human beings, also, through the new cults, or Christianity/Islam, will the abundance or quantity of blood flow like water in the brook, because the teaching of mine and the coming prophet Muhammad will be evilly falsified, for he will truly also teach love and consonance, peace and freedom, as well as honor and dignity for the woman in equal rights as the man, or equality, equivalence, equal rights, and comprehensively the same rights in all things. And everything will happen because my and also the new prophets, or Muhammad, quote, teaching of the prophets, will be falsified, which has been taught truthfully since old time as the, quote, teaching of truth, teaching of spirit, teaching of life, as the teaching of love, teaching of peace, and teaching of consonance or harmony, so that no hatred and no falseness and no war and no forcible death will be given. But as you rule over and judge man and woman with death, because they break certain laws, you create hatred and unpeace and also enmity, as well as lovelessness, evil discipline, or coercion and violence, or Gewalt, and war and inexorableness, or revenge and retaliation. And as you allow the light of the world, the woman, to be stoned to death, and also do not appreciate her, and do not honor her in dignity, and do not give or grant her equal rights, though you were born from her, you raise yourselves in outrageous wantonness or boastfulness above the woman, and raise yourselves up into the highest heights, and believe that you are your fabulated or invented, fantasized God himself. Therefore, only a true man will esteem the woman in her full value and honor her in dignity, and do good to her, and treat her in equality, or equal rights, equivalence, equality. So he will not place himself above the woman. Truly, as you brood of adders have made your God cult a cult for the man, and have made the woman inconceivable for, or have excluded the woman from, tasks or offices in the cult, and as it will also be in new cults, or Christianity/Islam, which will be made in falsehood from the teaching of mine and the new prophet Muhammad, so will it be that the woman will yet gain her rights in the new time. And also each of my disciples goes forth and fights for her rights, for also to them is given my authority to teach my teaching, which is the, quote, teaching of the prophets. Therefore, they pay no attention to the subjection by you and by the man in general. The woman is the light of the world, which shines for the love and the peace, as well as for the freedom and the consonance or harmony. So she is to be honored and appreciated, for truly there are only few among them who, in malice and in dominance and in degeneration, or a getting badly out of the control of the good human nature, do the same as you, and as all evil lords or rulers, and every man who succumbs to the demoniacal, or acts of Gewalt. As the woman today, in open duties and rights, and in that which is right, is made inconceivable or is excluded by you, and is held down or suppressed therein, because you exercise a dominance or mastery of the power, or Gewalt, over her. Hence you only acknowledge a dominance or mastery of the man, so will the woman yet win significance, or esteem strength, influence, might. It will be so when the prophet of the new time, or new time starting from 1844, comes and speaks for the woman and her rights, so at that time the woman will lift herself up and go forth or fight against the inconceivability of, or the being excluded from, her rights by the man. But the woman will only come to her rights in the full extent long into the new time, or in the distant future of the new time, when she stands above the dominance or mastery and power, or Gewalt, of the man. So she will then bring into the world true love and peace, as well as freedom and consonance or harmony. Therefore, in the distant time or future, the woman will break the sole dominance or mastery that is given from the man. Hence, the woman will free herself, and she will no longer be subject to the man. Woman and man will then be companions together with the same rights in all things, or equivalence, equality, and equal rights. Therefore, may every woman and every man already go forth today in such a manner that already today the foundation stone becomes laid for this, and my word fulfills itself, which is based on old words of the true prophets, who have also taught that the human being will only become better in his or her inner nature, or the inner being, if he or she diligently learns the teaching of the prophets, which is spoken as the teaching of truth, teaching of spirit, teaching of life. But you brood of adders, you Pharisees and Sadducees, high priests and scribes, do not heed the teaching, because you slander or defame it, and teach the people in the falsehood, so that they are misguided and depend on a hazy picture, or delusion, which you call, God. Truly I say to you, it will be as I say, because you do everything for the fact that my word will fulfill itself. Truly I say to you, as you will beat me and mock me from my words and the teaching, which I said to you and which I taught to the people, so shall you be beaten and mocked by those whom you have enslaved since time immemorial, and whom you and your forefathers have robbed of their land. And it will be in the coming time, or emergence of Islam, when you will atone for this, when the ones disenfranchised by you and the ones subjugated by you, the true or rightful owners of the land, will begin to rise up against you, and will be fighting you into the distant time to come, or future. Namely, a new proclaimer will arise in a near land, or Saudi Arabia, as a true prophet, or Muhammad, and by his fervoring, or fanatical, throngs, and their descendants, you will be scourged by laws of the falseness, because also his teaching of the truth and love, and of the spirit and of the life, which also corresponds to the teaching of the prophets, will be maliciously falsified, and a truth-perverting cult will originate from it. And so will it happen with my teaching, because the whole horde of the Pharisees and the council and the Sadducees and scribes want it to be so. And as you Pharisees and scribes, you Sadducees, and your like-minded ones, have been hated by other people since old time, so will it also continue in the coming time or future. Consider your vanity, or imperiousness, and your outrageous overbearingness, or craving for dominance, and your conceit of goodness, or overestimation of the self, equals wanting to be better than others, as well as your haughtiness against those who are not of your confused God-belief. For through this you have created hatred against yourselves since old time. Therefore you and your at times or in part like-minded and at times or in part guiltless or innocent descendants will be hated on account of your love of self, or hubris, and condescension, and will be persecuted until far into the new time, or new time starting from 1844, and beyond. Hence you and your descendants, with your honor and dignity, and with your unpeace, and with your blood, will be scourged. And so will it also be that other peoples, with other cults, and imperious authorities, greedy for bloody deeds, or murder, and hatred, will rise up against you and your distant descendants. And so it will be that many ones greedy for might will rise up in large numbers in zealous or fanatical hatred. And it will also happen that many misguided ones of many peoples will go against, or take revenge and retaliation on, your guiltless or innocent descendants for your actions, so their lives will be sought after. So it will be in the new time that, in war and zealous or fanatical hatred, pursuit or persecution, and cruelty or torture, and bloody deeds or murder, done in horror, will threaten them in a many thousand-fold number of 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000, or milliard/billion. And they will also be robbed of their possessions, or goods and chattels, and of their wealth, and of their gold from their mouths. And in many cases, their fear and their horror will take no end for a long time, or Holocaust. And so will it also be that even many of the distant, guiltless, or innocent descendants will flee into the expanse of the world, so that they may save their shroudless or naked lives. But dangerlessness, or safety, will not be given to them, for even many zealots or fanatics will still go forth even long after the atrocities of the war, of the hatred, and the rage, or the insanity. Therefore, further bloody deeds or murder, and destruction and gevalt or terror, and rulelessness or anarchy will reign through them unto the ends of the world, or worldwide. And because of each of your descendants, who will do like-mindedly as you, when they act like-mindedly in lowness or villainy, as you, your whole kind or people will guiltlessly or innocently suffer from now on into the distant time to come or future. So much suffering and pain and death and destruction will guiltlessly or innocently come over the whole people. Since old time you have made your kind or people into God-believers, and have taught your followers and countless descendants among the people hatred, and all kinds of evil and badness against others, who do not pay homage to your God, because they worship other gods, or because they do not want to be devoted to any god. Hence, you pompously or condescendingly call them unbelievers or heathens. But so will it also be in the coming time or future, that each of your near and distant descendants will fall to the hatred, when he or she does the same as you brood of adders and vipers, you who have devoted yourselves in many a wise to your false God-belief, and you who debase or disregard, trample over, the true laws and recommendations of the love and the life, as well as those of the peace and the freedom, the rightfulness or fairness, and the consonance or harmony. Truly, truly I say to you, whosoever puffs him or herself up against another, or acts condescendingly to another, to this one will hatred and peacelessness and disgruntlement or discontentment be brought, just as on account of your falseness it has been brought upon you since old time, and has also been guiltlessly or innocently brought upon your kind or people, and just as it will be into the distant time. Consequently, because of your guilt, the guiltless or innocent descendants of your kind or people will have to take upon themselves much affliction and pain, and thus death and destruction. Because of your guilt, your kind or people will be met with evil grievance and oppressive foreordination or destiny into the distant kind to come or future, because you are the creators or originators of all the badness due to which your kind or people will suffer into the distant time, and by which also guiltless ones or innocent ones will be affected.